Hey there everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Pubs vs. Pros, where I'm going to be taking a replay by a professional Dota 2 player and comparing it to a replay by somebody in public matchmaking on the same hero in very similar situations. And we're going to hopefully be able to compare and contrast how the two players handle these situations and learn from the pro players and what makes them unique and so good at the game. So in this first episode, we are going to be looking at Miracle playing the Lifestealer, and this game is taken from the We Play Tug of War Mad Moon tournament that Team Nigma recently won, and we're going to be comparing it to a replay by one of our Dota Alchemy Discord members, and he is Ancient 5, so a reasonably good player, and so I think it's going to be fun to see how a professional, top tier, potentially best carry player in the world compares on the same hero to somebody who is around 4k MMR. So the first thing that I want to talk about in this comparison is the starting items. And starting items are something that can really dictate how a lane will go, and I think it speaks a lot about the player's mindsets going into the lane. So if we look at Miracle's items, he has started with a Quelling Blade, a Branch, a Ring of Protection for a little bit of extra armor to trade against the Legion Commander, or tank creeps under tower if he has to, and then he has two sets of tangos. Our Ancient player, on the other hand, has started with an Orb of Venom, one set of tangos, a Branch, and a Quelling Blade. So if we look at his items versus Miracle's, it's pretty clear that Miracle is planning to basically just hit creeps and sustain, while our Ancient player is planning on trading with the heroes in lane. And on Lifestealer, I think that's kind of an important distinction because Lifestealer is a hero who really doesn't do much in the laning stage. He's just there. He's not going to lose the lane. He's going to get his farm. He's going to get his items, and he's going to play towards a very strong mid-game timing. And there's nothing wrong with trading right clicks. That's going to happen in basically every single lane. It's just that Orb of Venom tends to be more of a snowballing, trying to get kills type of item that you see on a hero like a Slark, who really wants to snowball with some early agility stacks, versus a hero like Lifestealer, who can certainly snowball off of kills in the early game, but tends to be played these days more as this really hard timing mid-game carry who just needs to get a Maelstrom and a Heaven's Halberd as quickly as possible, and then becomes really an unkillable force that cannot be stopped by the other team. So I don't necessarily want to say that the Orb of Venom is incorrect, because it can certainly be effective on a hero like Lifestealer. It's just, again, talking about how the two players' mentality and approach to playing a game of Lifestealer is quite a bit different. Here we are about 3 minutes and 40 seconds into the game, and I wanted to do just a quick check-in on the lanes. Obviously, there's a bit of different circumstances on Miracle's game. He is laning basically solo against Zai's Legion Commander, and Zai has pretty much just been cutting the waves because he doesn't want to lane against the Enchantress. Meanwhile, in our Ancient game, there are two heroes in the Lifestealer's lane kind of contesting him. Centaur and Earthshaker not really doing a lot to the Lifestealer, but there has been a little bit more battling, and there's certainly been a bit more experience stolen by the Abaddon in the Ancient game. So, we'll overlook the level discrepancy, but if you look at the creep scores, both Lifestealers are essentially exactly the same. However, Miracle has been taking that farm, and he is going to buy the first component of his Maelstrom, which is the Javelin, which will allow him to farm a little bit faster, maybe even trade a little bit better if Zai were to come back into the lane with the procs of 100 magical damage. Meanwhile, our Ancient player has opted to go for both a stick and now taking a piece of his phase boots and sending that out along with a mango. Again, we have Miracle going for items that are going to allow him to farm a little bit faster, and we have the Ancient player going for stuff that's going to allow him to fight. The 5-minute bounty runes are a super important objective to try and secure, and so I do like the fact that both Miracle and our Ancient player have positioned themselves early to try and contest the rune. The big difference here is that Miracle immediately returns to his tower to farm some more creeps, while our Ancient player goes for a kill. And he's itemized to sort of accelerate this style of play, while Miracle has obviously focused more on farming. So I'm not too surprised to see this play made by the Ancient player, but I do want to also point out that the CS is now starting to have a bit of a discrepancy. Miracle is starting to pull ahead in terms of last hits, and that is probably a trend that will continue if the gameplays persist as they are. So I wanted to highlight 730 real quick because this is when Miracle gets his full Maelstrom delivered. And obviously he has no other items pretty much except for the Maelstrom, but he gets this farming item because he is uncontested in lane. And that's the thing is basically as a carry, you want to get to the point where you are uncontested in lane and then you get your farming item as quickly as possible so that you can farm uncontested. And that's what we see here with Miracle. Since Zai is cutting the lane, obviously there is nobody pressuring Miracle, and so he's able to just get the Maelstrom straight away. I think if there was a bit more pressure, maybe he does go for a couple of other smaller items, but maybe not. The thing about this matchup is he knows he's going to be uncontested, and that's why he's playing so greedily. And as a carry, once you get your farming item, you just want to continue to farm. That's why you're buying it. So I think it's cool that he knows that he's going to be able to be uncontested, so he might as well get the farming item quickly, which allows him to farm extra fast uncontested. And on our Ancient side, we see that he has relatively the same CS at 730, but when we watch him hit creeps in the lane, it's just so agonizingly slow compared to Miracle because he doesn't have the spread damage from the Maelstrom, and that is just the difference in terms of how he's building. He's still relatively uncontested because the Centaur is only level 4, but it takes him so much longer to get more farm with this advantage. And so I think it's kind of an interesting contrast. At 13 minutes and beyond in the game is when we really start to see the difference between a top tier, professional, potentially best carry player in the entire world and a pub player who is pretty good at the game, but definitely not a professional. And I don't want to disparage the pub player, the ancient player. He has very good farm in his game. He's probably the strongest hero on the map, but therein lies the true difference because we see where Miracle is playing. He is literally at his opponent's tier 3. And remember, he's playing against Team Secret, who is arguably the best team in the world. So Miracle is playing with absolute reckless abandon, seemingly against potentially the best team in the entire world. And he's doing it because he knows that he is relatively, if not entirely, unkillable on this Lifestealer, especially with the amount of farm that he has. So he's taking that farm, he's taking that heavy advantage that he gained through the lane stage, through the way that he was playing, through the way that he was farming aggressively behind the tier 1 tower, between the tier 1, tier 2, and now between the tier 2 and tier 3. And he's basically just creating so much map pressure because Secret, they cannot go to this side of the map. They don't want to play towards Miracle because they know that it's going to take a while to kill him, if they do even kill him, and it's going to allow the rest of Team Nigma to either get insane amounts of farm on the rest of the map, or they can collapse towards Miracle. And that is what Miracle is doing. He's like a beacon for his team. He's creating a spot on the map where his team can play towards because he's giving them this incredibly aggressive vision by placing his body directly outside of Secret's base and pretty much denying Secret access to the entire top side of the map. So on the other side, on the Ancient game, we have our farmed Ancient player farming in his own triangle on the Radiant side of the map. And this is largely considered to be the safest farm on the map. So if we contrast this with Miracle, probably the most dangerous farm on the map, we have our Ancient player taking the safest farm on the map. And this is the biggest issue that we see when Jenkins and I do replay reviews on Dota Alchemy, or just in general when I'm looking at pub carry players, is that they just go hit the nearest creeps and they try to go hit the safest creeps most of the time, regardless of where they are in terms of their own item progression, their own power level in the game. I would say that our Ancient player is pretty much as susceptible to death as Miracle is. Maybe he's a little bit more likely to die because there's a bit more lockdown, a bit more hard disable on the side of the Ancient player's game, but he still has Rage TP, so he should be able to see some of it coming. He should be able to Rage TP out, which means that he probably should be unkillable based on how farmed he is in the game. And instead of doing what Miracle is doing, which is taking that unkillableness and putting it in the opponent's face, putting it in a place where they cannot deal with it, he is simply just taking easy farm and allowing his teammates to be the ones that are providing vision out on the map, which is definitely a pretty big contrast, right? His teammates are not as farmed as he is. They're definitely more susceptible to dying, and they're the ones that are kind of tasked with providing vision by putting their bodies in dangerous places. Whereas in Miracle's case, he is taking all of that responsibility and he is providing a rallying point for his team to group around and play towards. And as a result, you can see that Nigma is able to collapse and just really corral Secret into their base, denying everybody farm and eventually ending the game. I believe this one ended around 19 minutes is when the GG was called. So if there's anything that you take away from this video, it's to look at how and where you are farming and when you're farming there as a carry. I think it's one of the most important parts of getting better at playing that particular role. And so I hope that I was able to illustrate the point pretty well with this contrasting replay between Miracle and an Ancient 5 player. Let me know what you think of this content. I enjoyed making it. I hope to make some more of these comparing a pro player to a pub player. And so I would love your help by not only subscribing to this channel, but giving me a comment down below which suggests which hero you would like me to look at next, or potentially which pro player you would like me to look at next as well. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again really soon.